Taiwan in 2023, his first trip to the island, 2 years after he had retired and relinquished his command. And on his return, I asked him, what would you change about your assessment? And he said, I stand by my judgment that the threat is manifest in this decade.
Right, okay, well, thanks.
So the window we should think of as this decade, not 2027.
Wow, okay, so that gives us, what, maybe 2 more years based on that assessment? Okay, let's, doesn't make us feel that much better, isn't it, Roy? So, okay, on that point about how much we should feel better, how about you, Andrew? How much do you think this Taiwan 2027, this kind of deadline, how much of a consensus within the policy community do you think it is?
I'd say the 2027 deadline was widely talked about but not widely accepted. I think people appreciated the point that in terms of the urgency of how quickly the US and Taiwan should be taken seriously, China as a peer competitor to the US, I think that point was very much taken on board. But yeah, I mean, I think if you look at revealed actions, particularly in the economic sphere, right? I mean, you don't get tech companies making huge investments in Taiwan each year if they seriously think that China is going to invade in 2027. So yeah, I think it has been taken with a pinch of salt. I think people generally concur with the assessment that China's threat is very real, is very tangible. But in terms of is invasion around the corner next year, I don't think too many people are specifically worried about that. It's the longer term trend that I think is more cause for concern.
Right, so those timelines they are taken seriously, but maybe not literally just yet. Something we'd like to say about some other commentary from other leaders around the world. All right, so Fred's going to manifest, if it's really going to manifest itself within this decade, Roy, what kind of effects in policy term, in military planning term, do you think this idea of Bill Davidson's window or the idea that it's going to manifest within this decade have on U.S. policy planning?
Well, as Andrew just said, it's introduced a sense of urgency to planners in the United States, in Taiwan, and throughout the region. And I think that's a positive development, frankly. It's a little bit manipulative, right, to use the window as a means to drive budgets. But it has introduced a sense of realism and urgency that I think we're much in need. So it's not the case, Wenty, that on January 1st, 2030, we're going to stand on the beach waiting for the amphibious ships to. That's not the case either. I don't think we should focus on the point at which an attack has to occur. I think it's more about the net assessment of the trends that are developing in the region, and particularly with regard to Chinese military modernization.
Right, and there is a debate sometimes people have about the wisdom or advisability of this idea of Davidson window, which is obviously a nice slogan that focuses people's attention, but some people would say that it may have a largely net adverse effect in terms of perhaps sparking arms race. Some people say it's a good thing overall because it put Taiwan on the map in international discussions. Is it a more net positive or net negative from your perspective, Andrew?
I mean, I think broadly net positive. I think, at the point at which this statement was made, and still today, I think there is a lack of understanding of just how much Taiwan matters to the world and how devastating and catastrophic a conflict in this part of the world would be, not just to the region, but also, to the UK where I'm from. So I do think it's net positive. I think what I worry is that predictions like these, or kind of putting specific dates and specific timelines, can distract from some of the slower and more incremental actions that China is taking. And we talk a lot here about grey zone threats, right? So coercive actions below the threshold of conflict. These can still have a very real impact in terms of minimizing Taiwan's autonomy, restricting the space in which Taiwan can operate. But they're not as kind of as big or as obvious as the timelines we've discussed around an invasion or blockade of Taiwan.
All right, so it sounds like it's net positive in the sense that it highlights the gravity of this issue at stake here, but obviously we don't want to get too tunnel vision about it, lest that the urgent crowds are the important work for the long term.
Right.
All right, so on that issue, I think let's expand a little bit more. So speaking of Beijing's claims on Taiwan, let's listen to how Chinese Premier Li Qiang has addressed the issue in this year's NPC meeting.
我们要深入贯彻新时代党解决台湾问题的总体方略，坚持一个中国原则和9·2共识，坚决打击台独分裂势力，反对外部势力干涉， 推动两岸关系和平发展，促进祖国统一大业。
All right, so that's the latest assessment on Taiwan policy from China's top-level leadership. Obviously, there is a level of ambiguity in that language. So I'm wondering, Roy, from your experience, do you think there has really ever been a clear statement from Chinese authorities about exact timeline or time frame when it comes to resolving the Taiwan issue?
I don't think there is. And, you know, the 2049 date, I mean, if Xi Jinping were to remain alive, and apparently in his conversations with Putin, he thinks they want to live till they're each 150, but he would be 96 in 2049. So the chances of him still being the top leader in China are not great. I think the date itself coincides with the founding, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the PRC. It's aspirational, and it's far enough in the future that a lot of things can happen before that date. And so, you know, I was stationed in Beijing at the U.S. Embassy as a military attaché in the run-up to the return of Hong Kong on July 1st, 1997, and then the return of Macau Alman in 1999. And in that case, there were very specific dates. The big countdown clock was in Beijing, and we don't have a similar sort of circumstance in this case. And so I don't think we should look for it. I think actually we ought to be wary of so much attention being applied to the dates and what we think will occur by them that the Chinese will reflect that back to us.